I'm Jarrod Fry, General Manager of Medina TV, and I want to welcome you to our Candidates Forums. We partner with the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce to bring you these Candidates Forums to give you the most information possible to make you the most informed voter as you head to the polls this November. All candidates were offered invitations to take part in the races that we're going to televise here on Medina TV. So the candidates you see are the ones that responded to those invitations. We hope you sit back and enjoy our Candidates Forums and look forward to seeing you at the polls this November. Hello, joining me in studio now is Bob Campbell, one of the candidates for Medina Municipal Court Judge. Bob, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jarrod.
Yeah, why don't you first start and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm the independent candidate for the Medina Municipal Court. I grew up here in Medina County, went to Black River High School. After law school, I returned to Medina County, where I started my career as an assistant county prosecutor. There I was responsible for the prosecution of roughly 50% of all the felony cases in Medina County. So I prosecuted everything from low-level drug cases to aggravated murder cases. In 1996, I opened my own private practice in Medina County, and I've been in private practice in Medina County ever since. Currently, I have a general practice of law, and the focus is on criminal defense, the types of cases that the Medina Municipal Court deals with on a daily basis. I've got 3 daughters who all graduated from Medina High School, so I'm incredibly proud of them, and this is my first run at political office.
And it's a big step for anyone to take, so we appreciate that you're making that step into the political game. It's a tough thing for everybody to get into. For the viewers at home, could you start by describing a little bit what the role of the municipal court judge is?
The Medina Municipal Court judge oversees the court operation in the Medina Municipal Court. The Medina Municipal Court is a court of limited jurisdiction in that it handles criminal matters that are misdemeanors. Those are the types of offenses that carry, in general, 6 months in the county jail or less. There's no prison sentences generally that come out of the municipal court. Those things are OVIs, domestic violence cases, thefts, things like that. Also, small claims court is in municipal court, all the traffic cases, and civil lawsuits over money of less than $15,000. The judges, so the judge is responsible for overseeing all of that, but the daily job of the judge is 90% in the courtroom, ruling on motions, hearing trials, and determining the outcome of those criminal cases.
Now, in terms of that position, what expertise do you feel you bring as a municipal court judge?
Well, I have extensive, first of all, I have an extensive relationship with the Medina Municipal Court. First, as a lawyer, I've handled over 560 cases in the Medina Municipal Court, and these numbers are from the court in May, so those numbers for me have gone up since then. As counsel of record, being the attorney personally responsible for the outcome of the case for my client, and that's over the last, since 1996 when I entered private practice. I've also had the honor of serving as an acting judge in the Medina Municipal Court. And what that is essentially, it's like a substitute teacher. If Judge Chase is not available to do the business, the court has too many cases to just shut down the court, so he has some attorneys that he asks to come in and fill in for him on the for that day. So I've been doing that for about 15 years. I've sat on the bench over 80 times there, and I have done, I've been responsible for, as the judge, all of the types of hearings that the new judge will have to do. I've even presided over a jury trial. So my first jury trial as judge, if I'm lucky enough to be elected, won't be my first jury trial.
Now, as you have done experience in that and also as an attorney, what things have you learned over the years through being in trials or cases? What good and bad things have you learned from other judges?
I've been in front of a lot of judges, and I've taken a lot of good and bad from them. And they kind of come together because what the good judges do is kind of the opposite of what the bad judges do. And what the good judges do is they treat people with respect. They treat the lawyers with respect, but most importantly, they treat the people who come before the court with respect. Especially at the municipal court level, you run into very few people who are not redeemable. You run into very few people who aren't willing to, if given the opportunity, to make amends for what they did. And there's a fair number of people who just had a bad day and made a mistake. And it's important that when people leave the courtroom, whether they win or lose, they leave feeling that they got a fair shake. And that's the most important thing for me as a judicial philosophy.
Now, you've kind of touched on the judicial side and the cases and things of that nature, but there's also kind of another dynamic in the role of Medina Municipal Court judge, and that is dealing with city council and the mayor. And some of those issues that have popped up in the past in Medina have been whether to go for a new building, adding a second judge, arguments over budget. How do you feel your relationship would be with the mayor and city council in regards to those matters?
Well, I think, Jarrod, a lot of what we've seen over the last number of years between the city council and the mayor's office and the court is politics. And like everybody, I'm really tired of the politics. It seems to me that the reason things don't get done is because political officials are worried about who gets the credit, trying to make sure somebody else doesn't get the credit, making sure that their team or tribe looks good. I don't have a team or a tribe. My team is the people, and my interest is whatever is best for the people that this court's jurisdiction serves. So, I will come to that position with a clean slate to work with the city council and the mayor. Quite frankly, it's my opinion that it's the mayor and the city council's job to build a building. The construction engineer isn't part of a judge's job description. Now, I understand they need input from the court. Okay, the judge is what might be best or best way to do it. But I'm certainly, I don't think that court needs to be a Taj Mahal. But it certainly needs addressed because there are safety issues with the way the court is set up now. We have professionals. We have 2 magistrates that share a desk. The clerk's office is piled on top of itself. So something needs to be done. But hopefully, by bringing an independent point of view to this, it can break some of that political gridlock, and we can make some movement forward.
Now, obviously, not being in the office and not knowing some of the details, what would you feel might be some of the more pressing needs for the court in terms of facility-wise?
Well, and I am in the court. I mean, I'm not part of the negotiations or anything like that, but I'm in the court every week as an attorney. I'm in there. I've been in there, I think, 8 times this year as acting judge, might have been 6. The courtroom itself is large. That's not an issue. But for one thing, there is nowhere for attorneys to talk to their clients. There's nowhere for witnesses to really be separated from a person that they might be there to testify against. If a domestic violence victim wants to be separated from the person who she's accused of injuring her, she's put in the court's copy room. All right? That in itself is a bit demeaning. So those types of the facilities, that needs to be addressed. The main hallway for the transport of prisoners is the main hallway that the clerks use to get to the administrative section of the court. It runs right past the magistrate's courtroom and the magistrate's office. So if on the rare occasion that there's an inmate, a prisoner that acts up, we're putting clerks and court employees, citizens at danger. So those are the things that need to get set up. I don't know that really Medina County or the Medina Municipal Court is going to see a second judge anytime soon. It would kind of make sense, though, if we're going to build something other than a renovation, that we keep in mind that someday that may need to be done. But I would think it's the safety issues and just the ability to have some of the people not on top of each other is the most important thing.
Yeah. Okay, so that kind of covers the facility side of things. For your standpoint as a candidate, what do you see that are some obstacles in the municipal court from a justice perspective?
We're doing pretty good. I think Judge Chase has done a really good job as far as justice. When I go to that court, I walk out feeling that my client got a fair shake. But the reason that I feel that way is because Judge Chase is an experienced judge. He's been dealing with the types of cases that come before him for a long time. And my opponents, I don't believe, have that extensive experience in these types of cases. And for dealing with OVIs and constitutional issues, I mean, the judge has... We think that it's a small court, but every day there are questions about, was a person's constitutional rights violated by a traffic stop or by a search? And those are complicated issues, and if you haven't been dealing with them for your whole career, you really don't know a heck of a lot more about them than a first-year attorney would. There's obviously some questions about the opiate situation, and I don't know if that's on your list or not, and I don't want to step on one of your questions, but that is an important thing that needs to continue to be addressed there. But I think right now people can feel pretty confident that they walk into the municipal court, they leave with their case having been fairly heard.
Sure. Now, as a candidate, I guess the way you kind of brought up the opiate problem and things of that nature, but is there a project or something that you would like to see, if elected, that you could accomplish during your time as judge?
Yeah. It's difficult. The courts aren't going to solve the opiate problem. What the courts can do is identify folks who are struggling with addiction and offer them help and create for them an incentive to follow through on the help. Currently, the court has an excellent probation department. The chief probation officer, Mary Rose Power, has been there, I believe, 28 or 29 years, and she is very dedicated to her obligations as well as her staff, and they do a really good job of identifying those folks that may have those issues and putting them in an intensive supervision program where they see a probation officer 3 days a week. One of the problems that we run into with elections is politicians want to make promises, all right? We want to offer things to the people, and we see that with offering of a drug court in the Medina Municipal Court. The problem with the drug court is the Medina Municipal Court is really doing that type of work right now, but they don't call it a drug court. And the reason they don't call it a drug court is because to call it a drug court, you have to apply for grants and get grant money and follow certain rules of the grant authority, okay? And that does two things. One, it's spending the people's money, okay, because grant money is tax money, and it handcuffs the court on how to deal with things. Judge Collier is the first judge in the county to really have what we would call a drug court, but he accepts no grant money. He's not even, his isn't even called a drug court. Technically, it's called an early intervention program because of his refusal to accept the grant money. So I believe, having been involved in the criminal justice system and working with clients who have opiate addictions, that I have a keen eye toward who needs help and how to direct them there. And I think I can do that with hard work without spending more money.
Sure. Now, you've kind of, in some of your answers, have touched on some of this, I think, as people listen to this, but with three of you running for office, what separates you from the other two candidates?
My independence. I'm not a politician. I've never run for office before. The Republican candidate has run for and held several various public offices. The Democratic candidate, this is his second political race in the last 2 years, and it seems that their interest is more just getting some government job, whatever's on the ballot. I'm interested in being judge of the Medina Municipal Court. This is my home. This is where I grew up. This is where my kids grew up. I care about this community. And my experience practicing law in that court, practicing OVI law, domestic relations or domestic violence law, has made me expert in the very types of cases that this court handles. So I didn't wake up in February and decide I wanted to run for political office. I woke up and found that Judge Chase was retiring and that the court needed a steady hand to lead it, and felt that I was the best prepared to do that.
And then, so if elected, what would be your vision or future? What would you see as the vision or future for the Medina Municipal Court?
I want the court, to above all, serve the people there. I want it to be a friendly place for people to come. I want it to be a place where people feel that they're treated fairly. But I also want it to be a place where if you don't learn your lesson, you have to pay the consequences for it. And I think we've got people in place there and a vision to accomplish all of that.
Great. And well, thank you for taking your time to answer some questions. I wanted to make sure I give you a moment here, though, that for you to one-on-one address our viewers. So at this time, if there's anything I forgot to ask you or anything you wanted to say, the floor is yours now.
Thanks, Jarrod. I appreciate it. Medina County has an opportunity to take a step away from politics as usual and elect an independent, a person whose only loyalty is to the people of the jurisdiction. And that's me. Medina is my home. My kids grew up here. I grew up here. My parents were from here, school teachers in Medina County. And I believe that my dedication to this county is unsurpassed. And if that's not enough, I have an incredible amount of experience in that court doing the very job we're running for. So I would ask that you consider my candidacy in November. Thank you.
And once again, that is Bob Campbell, candidate for Medina Municipal Court Judge. Bob, thank you for taking the time. Best of luck in November.
Thank you, Jarrod. I appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Jarrod Fry, General Manager of Medina TV, and joining me in studio now is one of the candidates for Medina Municipal Court Judge. This is J.R. Russell. J.R., welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure to have you here. And why don't you start first by kind of just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Sure. Thank you. My name is J.R. Russell. I'm one of the candidates for Judge of the Medina Municipal Court. And I'm running because I believe that I have the right experience, the right judicial philosophy, and the right judicial temperament for the job. I'm not looking for this to be a stepping stone to some other job. This is the job that I want. If I'm elected, this is the job that I will finish. I live in the city of Medina with my wife, Attorney Monica Russell. We have 2 children, and I have broad-based experience over the years. I've appeared in front of over 30 municipal courts, and I've been on both sides of the type of cases that appear in front of the municipal court. I have been a defense attorney. I started out as an assistant public defender in a public defender's office. I'm currently the municipal prosecutor for the village of Lodi. I've represented big banks, large corporations, small family-owned businesses, consumers, both landlords and tenants. So I have very broad-based experience for all of the types of cases that appear in front of the municipal court.
And speaking of the municipal court, for the viewers at home, they may not quite understand everything the municipal court judge does. Why don't you just take a minute and kind of describe what the role is of the municipal court judge?
Sure, absolutely. The municipal court, it handles preliminary hearings for felonies. That's the initial hearing before, to determine whether there's probable cause to proceed to common pleas. It also handles the misdemeanor cases that occur within the geographical jurisdiction. And they handle civil cases where $15,000 or less are in controversy. Now, the municipal court here in Medina, it's called the Medina Municipal Court. However, it's not just strictly limited to the city of Medina. It includes the city of Medina, city of Brunswick, and the 11 townships in the northern part of the jurisdiction.
Now, you talk about some of the cases. What would be some of the cases people might see if they were to come in and sit in a courtroom for a day?
It handles, the municipal court handles traffic violations like simple speeding, assured clear distance, handles OVI cases, thefts, domestic violence, minor drug possession charges. And as far as the civil cases, generally the docket is a lot of collections. Sometimes there's disputes between contractors and homeowners. And there's a lot of landlord-tenant disputes that appear in front of the municipal court.
Now, as you kind of just mentioned, all those types of cases, they're varying. There's a lot of different things that come in there. What skills or expertise do you think you bring to the table that would help you as a judge to perform that role?
Well, primarily, I've been on both sides of the cases. I've represented landlords, I've represented tenants, I've represented those accused of crimes, and I've been prosecuting crimes in the municipal court for the last 5 years. So I have experience on both sides and understand what the prosecution side and defense side, or the plaintiff side or defendant side, are doing. And I've had trial experience both before bench trials and jury trials in a municipal court. So I understand how that goes. I've been very fortunate to appear in front of several different types of judges who were very good judges in varying jurisdictions around Ohio. And I've learned from them. Each case that I have, each trial that I have, you learn something new. And that experience will serve me well as I'm presiding over my own cases as judge of the Medina Municipal Court.
Now, you talk about that, the different sides, prosecution, defense, working with the judges. Well, there's also kind of another wrinkle that's thrown in with this position as well, and that's the relationship with the mayor of the city of Medina and city council, just as one example, handling of the budget, the budget process. How do you feel the challenges are there, and what do you see as a working relationship with the city of Medina and the mayor?
Well, I think this position has essentially three distinct parts to it. There's the judicial side, where you're presiding over the cases, making the rulings, handling the cases. There is an administrator aspect that you mentioned, as far as supervising staff, running the court, preparing the budgets. And also, you're a representative of the jurisdiction. And those three components form the basis of the job. I know everyone on Medina City Council. I have a good working relationship with Mayor Hanwell, with the finance director, Keith Durham, and I'm very confident that we would be able to work positively going forward. City Council and the mayor has done a spectacular job with the city. They're always very fiscally conservative as far as what they're doing with budgets and having their 5-year plans in place. And I would continue that and be able to work with them quite effectively.
Now, another interesting part, and it's been a topic for years as we discuss the budget process and everything like that, is the discussion over expansion of the municipal court, expansion of even adding an additional judge. I know not being in the office is kind of hard to answer these questions sometimes. What do you think your thoughts are as you head into this election in terms of whether expansion is necessary, a second judge is necessary? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think everyone agrees that the current facilities are inadequate. The real question is, how much do we need as far as new facilities, and where do we build? Do we do a build out of the current facilities, or do we have another space? And the question really, I think, and the dispute between the current judge and the council has been around square footage and what is the amount of square footage that's necessary. Judge Chase has done a marvelous job of collecting the $4 million to put towards this project. That money has to stay. It's in the capital improvement fund. That's what that money has to be used for. And I think everyone agrees that the court needs to be expanded because it is not adequate for the current needs. The question is, how big of a space do we have? As far as a second judge, I think at the peak, the Medina Municipal Court was handling somewhere close to 16,000 cases a year, which is a very large number for a single judge to handle in a given year. If the jurisdiction keeps up with that, a second judge probably is necessary to help with the caseload. However, all across Ohio, cases for a variety of reasons have been down. This year, I suspect that they're going to come in somewhere around 13,000 cases a year. But both the Wadsworth Municipal Court and the Medina Municipal Court, those numbers are a little bit down, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But something needs to be done, and I believe that whoever the next judge is will be able to work effectively with City Council to make sure that something's in place that's fiscally responsible and benefits the citizens who appear in front of that court.
So we kind of talked about the administrative side of things and the challenges that are faced there. Are there any challenges that you see from a judicial side? And if so, what might those be?
Well, one of the things that I think is definitely necessary for this court is to establish a specialized drug court docket. We have a drug epidemic here in this county right now, and I've found in some of the other courts I've been in, one of the best ways to try to address that is to have a specialized drug court docket. And it'll be a lot of hard work. It'll be very challenging. Whoever wants to establish a drug court docket, and I believe I'm the only candidate who is committed to doing so, has to have approval from the Supreme Court for the program. And what the program is you allow someone to connect them to the services and get the treatment that they need in lieu of trying to incarcerate our way out of the problem. And I think that would be something that's very challenging for a judge to deal with, but ultimately it's worth it because I think it would save money and reduce recidivism rates and potentially save lives.
And I guess to delve into that a little bit more, kind of explain, so in terms of if someone was going away for a jail sentence, in lieu of the jail sentence, they would be going to treatment. Am I understanding you correctly in that explanation?
What the program, as I envision it, would be is that a defendant would come in, a defendant would acknowledge, I have a problem. This is why this occurred because of my addiction. They would enter a guilty plea on the spot and then begin working the program. And potential jail sentence would be kind of a stick. And then you would also have a carrot to reward those. Random and scheduled drug screenings are absolutely essential. But if they're able to complete the program, you can either vacate the case as if it never happened or dismiss the case after that tentative plea has been made. So you give them some incentive to work the program. The judges who do the drug court, it's very intensive. Most of the jurisdictions, they'll meet with the group once every week, and they set aside a time scheduled where that's devoted to helping those. And what we found is that a lot of times the others working the program actually become your best allies because they help pull up those who are struggling for the first time because they've been in that situation.
Now, you said this program is something that you're doing different from your other candidates. What are some other things that do set you apart from your opponents this November?
One, I have jury trial experience in municipal courts. I have broad-based experience on both sides of the type of cases that appear in front of a municipal court. And I believe I have the right temperament for the job. I'm not going to embarrass the people of the city of Medina or anywhere in that jurisdiction. I've never been suspended from the practice of law. I've never been sanctioned by the Ohio Supreme Court.
Now, in terms of, we kind of discussed some of this already, but in terms of your vision for the future of the municipal court, you, like I said, you touched on that in some of the other questions, but what do you see if elected as a municipal court judge? What is your vision for the court?
I want to run a court that's very efficient in how it operates. I want to run a court that is fair. I want people to know when they come in that they're going to have a fair shot, because at the end of the day, that's all anyone wants, the people coming in or the practitioners who appear in front of the court. I want to make sure that everyone is treated with respect that they deserve. And quite frankly, the municipal court tends to deal with people on a one-on-one basis more than any of the other judges. People come in contact with them. People more often in a municipal court appear without an attorney. I wanted to make sure that the judge respects everyone, and even if they don't necessarily agree with their positions or their arguments, but they're professional and they're showing proper respect. Again, I think a drug court is absolutely essential to try to combat the problem that we face, because what we're doing, we're not seeing the results. And I think it's incumbent upon us to try something different to see what we can do to combat this problem.
Well, great. And now I'll give you one last chance, JR, here. I know thank you for answering all the questions we had here today, but I'll give you one last chance to kind of look at the camera here and have your opportunity to say one last thing to the voters, if you'd like.
Thank you. Again, I hope you vote for me this November. I'm the candidate. I've got the right experience based on the jury trial experience I've had in criminal cases, the broad-based experience that I've had on all of the type of cases that are heard by municipal court. And I have the right temperament for the job. I'm going to be fair, I'm going to be efficient, and I'm going to treat everyone who appears in front of me with respect, and I will do a great job, and I'll make the citizens who voted for me very proud that they voted for me.
All right, well, JR, thank you very much for your time here today.
I appreciate it.
And that's J.R. Russell, candidate for Medina Municipal Court Judge. Hi, joining me in studio now is Gary Werner. He's one of the candidates for the Medina Municipal Court Judge race. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today, Gary.
Good morning, Jarrod.
Why don't you first start a little bit and introduce yourself to the viewing audience and let us know why you're running for Medina Municipal Court Judge.
Okay, my name is Gary Werner. I'm the former mayor in the city of Brunswick. I served there for 4 years. Prior to that, I served on the city council for 5 years. Was a Board of Zoning Appeals member for several years before that. I've been an attorney for 23 years, first admitted in the state of California, later admitted in Ohio. So I've been a trial attorney in federal and state courts for the last 23 years. I'm currently working in a smaller firm up in Beechwood, 7 lawyers, and we do a lot of land use and real estate development work. The main reason I'm running for municipal court judge, running for judge is something I've been thinking about for my entire adult life. The short anecdote on this is when I met my wife's father 33 years ago, I had not finished college yet. And he said to me, well, what are your plans? And I said, well, I need to get back to school and maybe go to law school and perhaps in the long run become a judge. And he looked at me and he was, well, you know, you don't just become a judge. And he was right. It takes a long time, a lot of training, a lot of experience. But over 23 years, my work both in my professional capacity and my public service capacity, I think has prepared me to assume some of this responsibility. I know how important the job is. You know, in 23 years, I've met a lot of different judges in 2 different states. I've developed a very strong sense, I think, of what makes the good judges and the others the others. I find that the good judges aren't just good lawyers, because they have to be good lawyers. They're also good people. They have a kind of inbuilt self-restraint, sense of decorum, an easy respect for people, a humility, but still they're comfortable exercising the powers of the office. And those have sort of been my standards to which I've set for myself and which I would hold myself if I were elected as judge. So from the personal, the professional, and the public service end, I think I've prepared myself to assume these responsibilities.
Now, you kind of talked about the personalities and everything of a judge. What exactly, why don't you take a few moments to explain what the role is of the Medina Municipal Court Judge?
Well, the Medina Municipal Court Judge has a specific geographical territory, and it's essentially about 2/3 of the county, the northern 2/3 of the county. And they handle smaller matters, smaller dollar values, misdemeanor criminal offenses, foreclosure matters, OVI and traffic offenses, and small civil matters as well. The larger cases, the felonies, the more expensive cases, those go to the Court of Common Pleas. But a lot of the work that I did while I was running the Mayor's Court in Brunswick, which I did for 4 years, involved the same charges, or at least primarily the same charges as the municipal court handles. That's primarily OVI, traffic, and misdemeanor criminal matters. That's about 97% of what the Medina Municipal Court does, and was about that much percentage of the work I did while running the Mayor's Court. So I've sort of been preparing for that work in my Mayor's Court capacity, and then as a magistrate in that Mayor's Court since.
And I think you kind of hit on the next question I was going to ask, but I'll let you elaborate a little bit if you'd like. What are some specific skills or expertise that you feel you bring to this elected position?
Well, in preparation for the campaign, I spent last year reviewing data about the court, about the facility, because I know there's a facilities question coming down the line here, about the caseload, just the amount of cases that they handle, and the nature of the cases, the number of trials they've been conducting. And it turns out that more than 95%, and maybe as many as 97% of the cases that are disposed of in the Medina Municipal Court are disposed of following arraignment and sentencing. The trials, both the jury trials and the bench trials that judges preside over, those have been declining for the last 16 years. Most cases are disposed of or terminated in that court by an arraignment followed by a sentencing. And that is essentially what I did 200 times in Mayor's Court for 4 years, handling those same charges and imposing sentences. So I look at that as a perfect correspondence. I've got enough trial experience and litigation experience to handle, the other matters that occur in the Medina Municipal Court. But what that court does most, I have done the most in my preparation for acting as that judge.
And as you predicted, you said there was a question coming down the pike, so I'll go right to it next.
Okay.
The municipal court judge has to deal not only within the courtroom, but outside the courtroom in a more administrative role, dealing with city council and the mayor of Medina in regards to various matters. One off the top of my head would be budget. How do you feel the judge's working relationship should be with members of council and the mayor?
Well, in this respect, I think I have an advantage over both of my opponents, given my public service record. I've worked as a councilman, both at large and as a ward councilman. I also served as the vice mayor in Brunswick for 2 years and as mayor for 4 years. And every one of those years, we would sit at the table every summer, do the tax budget, and then work into the operating budgets for the departments. And I have been at all of those finance meetings with all of the elected and appointed officials, the department heads, working through the concerns, all the safety personnel, their equipment needs, staffing needs. And that experience, I think, has prepared me to deal not only with other public officials, people responsible or share responsibility for those matters, but it also gave me sort of an inside track on managing public funds. I'm very stingy when it comes to spending public money because I realize how it gets into the public coffers. It's taken from people, one way or another, taxes or fees. So I'm always very, very careful with those things. And I think that having developed that perspective and having worked with other elected and appointed officials for all those years on exactly these kind of public institutional facility issues has prepared me in a way that I'm not sure my opponents have been prepared.
And in terms of that, how do you see your thoughts? One of the biggest issues they've had in recent years between the mayor and the city and the judge has been expansion, additional judges, things of that nature. What are kind of your thoughts on some of those issues?
Well, I've got a lot of thoughts, but I'll try to boil them down. Again, as I was preparing to run this year, I did a lot of research. I actually looked at the 1982 site plans for this courthouse. And it appears that our forebears actually anticipated the future need for a second courtroom because they allotted space for it in the basement of the facility. What I understand is that area down there is not ADA accessible because those requirements developed later after the court was designed. But the spacing as far as the second courthouse, that's provided for, I think, down there in the original plans. Not sure exactly how they've allocated all that space presently, but I know that it was intended to be expanded at some point. And with regard to did you want me to address that jurisdictional task force issue?
Sure.
Oh, okay. the Medina Municipal Court has been examining a court expansion for over a decade, and they've had numerous engineering proposals, various sites in mind. Some of it was going to be linked to the county courthouse. There were other sites nearby the city hall that they were looking at. I think that the task force is examining this from a much lower cost perspective, and that is if you adjust the boundary between the two municipal courts in the county, Wadsworth and Medina, you can shift some of the caseload. Because as it stands, the Medina Municipal Court has substantially more cases annually than the Wadsworth Municipal Court. And I have it from the judge and the staff in Wadsworth that they can absorb some of those cases if this boundary is redrawn. And from my perspective, that takes off some of the pressure to expand the current facility to address these other issues. The money that's been saved up for those purposes can be devoted to what I understand to be very high priority items in Medina Municipal Court, safety for court personnel, safe transport of defendants, et cetera, and maybe even address some of these ADA access issues for the lower level, so that space can then be developed and used to handle the court's caseload. So it's always the lowest cost method. That's the one I prefer, and I think that there's some options that are facilitated by this task force work.
Okay, now, and along those same lines, and you kind of mentioned if you shift some of that caseload, and then you talked a little bit earlier about how some of the jury trials have diminished over the years. What are your thoughts on the necessary need or need for a second judge?
Well, that's a determination that actually gets made elsewhere. I know from my own research that there are 14 other single-judge municipal courts in the state of Ohio that have smaller jurisdictions population-wise, but which are terminating in thousands more cases per year than are occurring in the Medina Municipal Court. That's based on the 2015 survey that the Supreme Court of Ohio does. They do an annual survey on caseload management. And my view is always, with regard to public service, and this is a public service, it's an important and specialized one, but it's still a public service. If there are opportunities to improve that service, to make it more efficient, to make it less expensive for litigants and defendants, to streamline the process so people aren't, lingering in the system forever, I'm always open to such improvements. And that's the kind of thing I really won't have a stronghold on until I were in office.
Sure.
So, but I'm always open to these sort of service improvements, low cost, better service approach to public services.
Okay, and we've kind of just approached the administrative side and some of the fiscal side of that, of the judge's position. But in terms of the legal system, are there any types of obstacles in the justice system that you see right now? And if so, what are those?
Well, that's a very big question. There's a couple of things that I'd like to at least touch on.
Sure.
One is the advent of drug courts, veterans courts, mentally disabled courts. The object of all of those courts or those special dockets is to assist people who have particular needs, who are sort of frequently in the judicial system for whatever reason, and helping them avoid coming back. I mean, the recidivism problem is a problem in all courts, and for some folks, it's unavoidable. A lot of folks who have difficulties with addictions struggle with that their entire lives. But the efforts that these special dockets make to help people in particular communities who experience a kind of category of difficulty with recidivism, assisting them in not coming back, more follow-up, more interaction, more monitoring, just so that they stay out of the system. I think that that's helpful. I think that developing those courts, those are all things that I have been urged by people to take a look at if this goes well for me. And I've already begun sort of doing research on those things as well. But helping people stay out of the court system, I think, is an important, at least one important issue facing the court.
Yeah, and that's a very big one too, especially with the opioid problem and everything we've had these days. You're exactly right. Now, in terms of yourself, what makes you different than the other candidates that are running for this office?
Well, that's it's tempting to be, candid about all of that, right? But I think that it's fair to say, and I would ask folks, to go to my website. It's wernerforjudge.com, and I've got a Facebook page, and I've tried to put up all the resume stuff, the schooling and the professional experience and the ratings by, U.S. News and World Report and the Best Lawyers magazine and all. What I'm trying to communicate to folks with that information is that when I do something, I work hard at it. And it's important to me to work hard at things. I've done that in all of my public service. I've done it in my educational life, my personal life, and it's something that I would take to the court with me. In terms of the combination of experience I have, I know that both of my opponents have backgrounds which suit them to some of this work. I understand that. But I don't think that they bring to it the combination of experiences that I have, particularly when you combine the specific work I did running the mayor's court, which was a routine thing for me for 4 years, handling the same charges that the municipal court handles, terminating those cases the same way that they are terminated in the municipal court. And then you combine that with just broad legal experience in 2 different states, having served in public office, monitoring public budgets, budgeting for facilities and personnel. I've got a combination of experiences that I don't think they can match.
Now, if elected to this position, what's your vision, or what do you see for the future for the Medina Municipal Court? Well,
it won't differ much from my approach to my other elected office experience, and that really is improving the service of the court. I know that a lot of litigants, clients of mine, and clients of other lawyers that I know, a common complaint on the part of everybody who participates in a judicial process is delay. The old justice delayed is justice denied. Delay seems to be a pretty staple feature of a lot of court procedures, and that's something I would really like to focus on, because I think what gets lost in a lot of these delay situations is that there are real people involved in this, whether you're a defendant in an OVI case or whether you're a civil litigant who's suing somebody for not getting out of the apartment that you rented to them. There are real people on the other side of all these controversies. And I think that good lawyers also want attention paid to their cases, so they're moved along, so they can provide their services to the clients and get them results that they're after. So one expectation I have is, if I am elected, is to really focus attention on improving the delivery of the public service of the courthouse, because people are entitled to that. They're entitled to the best, highest quality, most efficient service that they should be able to expect from a court.
Okay. Well, great. I appreciate you taking the time to answer some tough questions here, and your open and honesty with this. But now this is your moment to give you one last chance here to kind of address the voters and let them know whatever you'd like to let them know.
Okay. Well, this fall, the public in Medina, in the jurisdiction of the Medina Municipal Court, will get a chance to pick a new judge. Judge Chase has served the court for several decades, and this opening presents an opportunity for folks, willing and prepared to serve. And as I say, both of my opponents bring a certain set of experiences to this race and offer that to the public. But I think that I offer, as I've said, a combination of experience, personal, professional, and public service, which is unique in this race, and which I think uniquely qualifies me to assume this office. I've said it so many times along the way here, the standards of this courthouse and of a judge should be much higher than they are for normal public officials. Even the rules for judicial campaigns are more strict than they are for non-judicial races. But I think that's entirely appropriate. The folks who serve in judicial capacity are exercising a tremendous amount of power over people, over their property, over their fortunes, their liberties. And I think the folks that we put in these positions should be the highest qualified folks that we can put in those positions. And I've been tempted to communicate to the voters that I'm such a person, that I'm a person who devotes himself to working hard at everything that he undertakes. And I pledge that if I'm successful this fall, I will work no less hard to make sure that this office is upheld in the highest traditions of the court and serve the public to the extreme of public service that any person should expect when they go into a courtroom.
Thank you. That's Gary Werner, your candidate for Medina Municipal Court Judge. Thank you for taking your time with us today, and best of luck to you in November.
Thank you, Jarrod.
Thank you.